So this brings us to the Christmas season. And I did have to jog my memory a little bit, but it's also not all stuff that I want to remember. So what I do remember is that we had an unusually long winter break, which most people would be happy about, would be excited about, right? Solid 3 weeks rather than the normal 2. For me, it was a little stressful and it was expensive. And I lucked out in a couple of ways because the Foster Kids Support Network, Bruin Guardian Scholars, also known as BGS, they actually paid for me to be able to stay in my dorm, in my, what they refer to as a plaza, right? Where, I think I've already said this, but because I knew I was going to be in a place year round, I paid more, or I should say took out more loans to have my own bathroom. So it wasn't your typical dorm. But anyway, they paid for me to be able to stay there over the Thanksgiving, pretty sure, and I believe over the Christmas break. The problem is that, and I don't get me wrong, very, very thankful, very, very grateful, but I very, very specifically remember that there was a time when there was not a single soul on that campus, and it was insanely, insanely lonely. Let me further paint the picture that I was doing this stupid sleep cycle bullshit, right? Sorry, but I was up at like 4 a.m. and having to do things to keep myself awake because you can't be consuming caffeine. And so one of the things I very quickly realized was not something I could do, but one thing I thought that I could do to occupy the time was like, let me take up running. So I have this memory of it being like pitch black, 3 a.m., middle of Denev Plaza. I've got my running shorts on, I've gotten my shoes and my, running outfit, and I'm getting ready to start jogging, and then all of a sudden I get this huge cramp in my hip. And I start and I basically have to hobble my way back into the building and I'm just thinking to myself, of course nobody's watching, thank God, but how stupid do I look? Can't even so out of freaking shape, can't even jog out of the, yeah. For the actual Christmas holiday, my friend Hannah, who I mentioned earlier, who has a twin sister that we're going to call Hope. So Hope and Hannah, those names come up again. We were really good friends at the time. She actually invited me to spend Christmas with her and her family in Pasadena. And if I remember correctly, it was only the last few, it was gonna be the couple days before Christmas, and then a couple days after Christmas, and then I had something to do where I had to be back on the UCLA campus. I don't honestly remember what I did for New Year's Eve that year. Maybe I went to Tiger Heat. Did I go to Tiger Heat? I probably went to Tiger Heat. I don't remember. But anyway, speaking of Christmas, so there's a few things that I want to mention. So first off, I'm very, very grateful because that I was able to hang out with Hannah and her family, because we did get really close for a little bit amount of time, and just not having to spend the holidays by yourself, that I was so grateful for that. So even though we've gone our separate ways, I'm very grateful for that. Hannah's mother was huge on, she was really big on things like astral projection, past lives, numerology. And she spoke with such confidence that I very much was intrigued by and interested in her whole philosophy. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but One thing that she did that I've never had done before that she actually did incorrectly, I didn't find out until years later, and I do believe that there's a reason for that, is that she calculated my life path number. I'm not going to get into all that, but it's calculated by your birth date. And she did it incorrectly. So I spent years kind of thinking this one belief and kind of thinking this one way, when actually it's another way. The difference is significant. This is not meant to get into numerology. I'm not honestly here to convince people of anything about numerology. I'm just here to mention that fact because it comes up years later and it stems from this moment. I remember that was one of the many conversations we had, was about numerology. And what else happened? So I remember that I had to meet. LA is huge, and then I still to this day can't wrap my mind, but I know that like parts are different cities. Like Pasadena's a different city, that's a different city. So I remember I had to take a train, maybe even a couple buses, to like meet Hannah at a certain spot, and then she drove me to her parents' house, which was the part of LA that they were in. Actually, it wasn't Pasadena. She's from Pasadena, but that's not where they lived. They lived like, honestly, like I want to say an hour away from San Diego. Okay, so California's huge. LA is huge. I didn't have a car. Maybe about 2 more years later, I get a car. But yeah, that was the holidays. That was Christmas. Wow, I almost forgot. For the first week, so actually the time that I actually spent on campus, if I remember correctly, out of those 3 was about maybe a week and a half. So it was like the middle week, because the first week I actually went to stay at a friend's dorm up at UC Berkeley. Almost totally forgot about that, but it was almost a week. My friend from high school let me stay with her for free in her dorm. Like her roommate was okay with it. Like, wow, how did I almost forget about that? Honestly, again, so many things happened, but the one thing I do remember from that time is I could not wait to get back to LA. I could not stand the UC Berkeley campus. I'm sorry, it was so ugly. The Bay Area is just not the sunshine I was used to in LA. I wanted to see my sister, but I wanted to see my family, my siblings, because I was not on speaking terms with my grandmother or my parents. So that was part of why I came up. And I remember I went to see my sister's Christmas play at church. But wow, I almost forgot about that. So I did spend almost a week up in the Bay Area, Berkeley. Went back to LA for a week solid. And then and then around Christmas, spent the time with Hannah's family, and then came back to LA. So that brings us to the end of 2011. And now we'll talk in the next video about spring quarter, which is the 3rd quarter, the optional 4th quarter, which is the summer quarter, and many people, myself included, just went to school year-round. It's a way of getting financial aid, actually. It's a way of, in a really sick, twisted way, it's a way of keeping a roof over your head. That's what I came to find out, is to continue taking classes. It's a very expensive way to keep a roof over your head. But when you're a student, you don't have to deal with things like credit scores and deposits, and you pay for it in the end with loans, but it's different, right? So talk more about that in the next video.